Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. The Democratic-led U.S. House voted today on two bills that would protect abortion access 3 weeks after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. But it's unclear whether the bills would pass the Senate and make it all the way to President Biden's desk. CBS's Skylar Henry reports from Capitol Hill.
The Democratic women of the House gathered on the steps of the Capitol.
The bill is passed.
Moments before the chamber approved a bill aimed at restoring abortion rights previously protected by Roe v. Wade.
Every person deserves dignity, safety, and care in seeking an abortion.
The Women's Health Protection Act prohibits states from imposing limits on abortions that would make them more difficult or costly to obtain.
The majority of Americans do not support abortions with no limits.
The Supreme Court overturned Roe, creating a domino effect for a number of states to ban the procedure.
Mid to late term abortion is a barbaric procedure which can include dismemberment of the baby and crushing of the skull.
The House also passed a separate measure prohibiting states from interfering with a woman's right to cross state lines to obtain an abortion. On the House floor, some Democrats cited the case of a 10-year-old girl who was forced to travel from Ohio, where most abortions are illegal, to Indiana to get the procedure after being raped.
According to Republicans, even a little girl impregnated by a brutal rape should be denied an abortion and have to endure government-mandated birth.
Both measures are likely to fail in the Senate, where 60 votes are required to advance legislation.
With two more Democratic senators, we will be able to eliminate the filibuster when it comes to a woman's right to choose.
President Biden has said he supports changing Senate rules to codify abortion rights across the country. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Last week, the Biden administration took executive action to try and protect women who cross state lines to seek abortions and is exploring other federal steps. Governor Andy Beshear held ceremonial bill signings for new laws that are now in effect that deal with health care. Many of the laws deal with access and screening. House Bill 219 makes it easier to get lung cancer screenings. Another bill will help increase the number of mental health workers. House Bill 370 deals with access to dental insurance, and House Bill 237 deals with mental health.
As I've said before, mental health is just as critical as physical health and just as important for us to address both as individuals and as a state. That's why I'm proud to sign this bill, which will increase the number of mental health professionals able to treat patients, particularly in underserved areas.
The governor also signed bills for the state to meet national standards in stroke care and one that will require insurance companies to cover the best medicine for patients, even though it may not be the cheapest. U.S. basketball star Brittany Greiner returned to a Russian court today for a fourth hearing on drug charges, for which she could face up to a decade in prison. In handcuffs, Greiner was led into court in a khaki-colored Nirvana T-shirt, smiling to cameras that were briefly allowed into the courtroom. Last week, Greiner pleaded guilty to carrying vape cartridges containing cannabis oil, but said she had no intention of breaking Russian law. At today's session, Greiner's defense team presented evidence in a bid to prove this. Washington has heavily criticized Greiner's detention, but the Russian authorities have said they do not consider it illegal and say the case against her is not political, despite Moscow's relations with the United States. Eric Weinberg has a long history as a Hollywood producer and writer and used to be a co-executive producer on the hit TV shows Scrubs and Californication. But Los Angeles police say he also has a long history of being a serial sexual predator who targeted innocent young women in public places like local coffee shops and grocery stores. Detectives say he posed as a photographer and convinced them to come to his home for photo shoots. But once they were inside, those victims told police Weinberg sexually assaulted them. One neighbor said she was warned about Weinberg's residence when she first moved into the neighborhood.
A friend of mine pointed out the house and said, "Watch out, I know of a ton of girls who have been specifically lured into that house and have had, been assaulted."
People told reporters that it is easy to see how vulnerable young women, especially those who are trying to make it in Hollywood, could be tricked with such an age-old ruse. and be terrified of getting blacklisted if they speak up. Weinberg was arrested for a number of sexual assaults police say he committed in LA between 2012 and 2019, but they believe he may have been victimizing young women for a total of 30 years, dating back to the early 1990s. Police are encouraging those women to come forward. The New York grocery store where 10 people were shot and killed is now back open. The race-related mass shooting happened 2 months ago in Buffalo. Members of the community gathered to join in prayer and remember the lives lost before Tops Supermarket opened its doors again today. More than 75% of the people who work there decided to go back. The president of the store chain calls it a testament to their resiliency. The store has been completely renovated, and there are new safety and security measures too, along with a memorial for the shooting victims. Prosecutors say 19-year-old Peyton Gendron targeted the 10 people he shot to death because they were black. He's now facing 14 hate crime charges in the incident. A groundbreaking ceremony for the new Desert Storm Memorial was held in Washington, D.C. yesterday. The memorial will be built on the National Mall. It honors those who served in Operation Desert Storm and Operation Desert Shield in 1990 and 1991. The operations freed Kuwait after Iraq invaded it and defended Saudi Arabia and the Arabian Peninsula from further invasion. The memorial is expected to open to the public by Veterans Day 2024.
Mild weather continues into this evening across the mountains, but not as mild as we have been over the past few days. Let's take a look over at UVA-wise. Plenty of sunshine and blue sky. A few of those puffy cumulus clouds back in the distance as well. Over at the London Corbin Airport, more in the way of clear skies. Over in this location, we are mild. Current temperature sits at 86 degrees, 88 for Manchester and Hazard, 87 for Monticello and Irvin, 84 in Prestonsburg, and 85 over in Harlan. Dew points today, though, actually lower in the upper 50s for most of us, so it feels just a little bit better as you walk out the door this evening. Up on Pinpoint Doppler, we are quiet, a clean sweep, and that stays similar as we go into the rest of this evening. We stay under a mix of sun and clouds. Partly cloudy tonight, temperatures falling into the middle and upper 60s. However, we are watching out for some changes, especially as we get into the end of the weekend and into your next work week with more showers and storms possible. I have that full forecast coming up in just a little bit. Steve.
All right, Cameron, thank you. The U.S. Department of Education is proposing new regulations to help alleviate student loan debt. Washington News Bureau reporter Jamie Bittner explains who it could help.
U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona tells me he wants to fix what he calls a broken system. He's proposing new regulations to ease the burden of student loan debt. But before he finalizes them, he wants to hear from you.
The system has to be better so that more Americans can have access to it.
Over the next 30 days, Secretary Miguel Cardona says the U.S. Department of Education wants to hear from the public about its new plan to help students and families. The new proposed regulations zero in on stopping predatory practices and giving borrowers more options, including measures to stop interest capitalization, which occurs when unpaid interest is added to the principal balance of a loan. The new regulations also seek to give students relief by expanding the eligibility for public service loan forgiveness.
Public service loan forgiveness is for public servants, right? Teachers, nurses, folks who choose public service not because of the money, but because they want to make their community better. Well, this was intended to give those folks loan forgiveness so that they're not spending the rest of their lives paying off loans.
The proposal also seeks to alleviate burdens for borrowers whose schools closed or lied to them. That includes giving borrowers more options to have a day in court if they have pending disputes with their colleges. Anyone who wants to weigh in on the new proposal can do so on regulations.gov. By the way, the U.S. Secretary of Education tells me if you think you're eligible for public service loan forgiveness, don't wait until these federal regulations are finalized. Go to studentaid.gov right away to see if you're eligible right now. In Washington, I'm Jamie Bittner.
Well, we are halfway through summer, and that means for many parents, it's time to get your child ready for college. But does your teen lack basic life skills? Professor Julie Lithcott-Hames from Stanford University says many first-year college students have major gaps in life skills. She says tasks like doing laundry, keeping track of schedules, budgeting, or cooking meals are lacking in most college-aged adults. The solution, she suggests, is to start talking about it now before school starts. Experts also suggest making a list of things your child already knows how to do and some they might need to learn so they can start thinking about it now. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, a new phone number for the National Suicide Hotline and how it could impact our region.
And our next weather system looks to bring showers, storms, and some brief heat relief into the mountains. I have the latest timing coming up.